Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I am Derek Gano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Today, Joe, we are headed back into our top 5 lists. Today is our top 5 best athletes who have never won a championship. So, if you want to get us started with your first honorable mention.
Yes. My first athlete is an NBA basketball player, currently a head coach in Division One basketball. He's coaching at Georgetown University, where actually he played his basketball at Georgetown University. So if anybody has to venture a guess right now,
Where he did win a championship, but that doesn't count. In professional sports.
Right.
Professional sports.
But it's the big man, the center that I think he wore number 33 as a New York Knick for most of his career. 33,
right.
I think he was 33. Patrick Ewing is my first honorable mention. He played in a 17-year career, Derek. I thought that was phenomenal. He played for the Knicks from 1985 to 2000. He played for the Seattle Supersonics from 2000 to 2001, which is that 1 year of just kind of weirdness. And then he played the Magic from 01 to 02, which is another year of just him being there.
That would be an interesting trivia question. Where were the other two places that Patrick Ewing played besides New York?
And he played with guys like Charles Oakley, John Starks. I remember those teams. That was the day for video games and NBA Live. Like, I used to love that game. And I remember those Knicks teams were kind of fun to play with. Anthony Houston, I think, was a shooting guard back then.
Allen Houston.
Oh, Allen. Yep. I'm sorry, Allen Houston. But he was an 11-time All-Star, which is nothing to sneeze about. That's tough to. 5, 6, 7. You keep going up, and you're a beast. So I put him on there for that too. And he went to 2 NBA Finals, Derek. I don't have who he played against. One of them could have been maybe in a. They could have beat the Bulls actually at one point, maybe to get there.
Bulls would have been, to get there would have been in the East. I do remember, I think, I'm not 100% sure. I think
the Cavaliers.
Hold on. I might be able to. No, I'm not going to have it. I do think it would have been 1 year was when Michael Jordan retired. And it was just Pippen there. And I think they beat them out 1 year there. I don't know when the other one was, but
Patrick Ewing, he's just a guy. He got to the rim with ease. He dunked the ball a lot. Probably as much as Shaq would. He wasn't a guy. I don't have the numbers. I should have looked this up, but he was a pretty decent free throw shooter. I'd say about average for a big man. I want to say. Not a 3-point shooter.
74%. Okay. That's pretty darn good for a big man. I was
going to say 74% isn't bad. I don't have a lot more about Patrick Ewing, but I'll tell you right now, he was absolutely a great NBA player. So I had to have him on the list, Derek, to never win a championship.
Yeah, one of the best defensive centers, but just unfortunately, he put a lot of his time was during the years of Michael Jordan. His best years were, it looks like he was an all-star from 87 to 97 the entire time, but that was all years that Michael Jordan was playing. So unfortunately they couldn't get by them. But with the John Starks and that they were probably the rough team to play, I remember. But
they're physical.
Couldn't quite do it, but one of the best definitely in the NBA who never won it. We're going to do it a little differently this time. We're going to go back and forth here. So my first honorable mention will be someone from Major League Baseball. I'm going way back here, Joe. I'm going back to 53 to 71, all for one team. Mr. Cub, they called him, and that is Ernie Banks. I went with two-time MVP and a 14-time All-Star. And Joe, his teams were pretty bad. I have a number here. So in however many years that was, off the top of my head here, 19 years, he spent 452 452 games out of first place. So if you count, what it normally, last place probably finishes about 30 games out of first place. Total, he was 552 games out of first place. They were pretty brutal when he played for them. He was named MVP twice on losing teams. And we know how hard that is. You see some nowadays, like I remember, when Felix Hernandez won the Cy Young, he was 500 or less. DeGrom was 500 or less.
Trout would be the name I think of.
Right? Yeah,
right?
that's true. He's playing under 500.
Yeah.
Only 6 of his 19 teams finished with over 500 records. The closest they came to winning a World Series, they led the NL East for 155 days, but went 8-17 in their final 25 games and lost the division to the Mets. That was the closest. They never made it to the World Series. But Ernie Banks, Joe, was as I said, one of the best for the Cubs and in Major League Baseball, I would say.
Yeah, and he's the guy that coined the phrase "Let's play two," right? With the doubleheader. Isn't that Ernie Banks? Yeah. So like he's just a guy you hear about growing up, like, oh, Ernie Banks, what a great player. Wish you could have saw him play. I know a lot of my older relatives, including my grandfather, would say that to me. Like, you should have saw these guys play ball. They were they were the ball players, right? And Ernie Banks kind of is that figure. He's that guy that you sit there and say, they call him Derek, Mr. Cub, for only one reason, and that's because he probably could be one of the best ever to put on that uniform.
Yes.
So that's, not much else to say about Mr. Cub, but that's a good one, Derek. Good job on your part to have him as your honorable mention. My second honorable mention is coming from the National Hockey Association, the National Hockey League. And this is amazing for me. I know I laughed at myself when I wrote this down, but it's one of the best players to play in the era of the 90s into the 2000s. And it's hockey's own Eric Lindros is my second honorable mention. He played for the Philadelphia Flyers from 1992 to 2000. He's a big hitter. He's a guy that just, man, he got the job done at times, but again, the championship has always eluded him, and there the Stanley Cup is a championship in hockey. The New York Rangers from 01 to 04, and the Maple Leafs in Toronto from 05 to 06, and then finished his career as a Dallas Star in 2006 and 2007. And again, I don't know hockey, so I'm not going to BS our audience, but he just was a guy that you always saw in the forefront of things. When he came to Philly in the 90s, he was the guy, number 88. He was that guy. Like you turn on the television for a minute and he'd be there. He'd just be very captivating as a hockey player, and he would hit people and he would score some goals. And, I don't know. I just think of the Philadelphia Flyers in that era, and you kind of can't forget about him. And then looking at him on a list like this, he's kind of tough to leave off. So I put him as my second honorable mention, Eric Lindros.
So I think from what I read, people know I'm not a big hockey person, but from what I read up on, he definitely usually had a lot of beef with his teammates and management. He wasn't, he didn't get along with a lot of people. But he was a Hart. For those that don't know, Hart Trophy is the MVP trophy, I believe, in the NHL. He was a Hart Trophy winner. You mentioned 7-time All-Star, but yeah, never made it to. He made it to one, I think. Do you have that written down? I think it was one Stanley Cup.
I think it was one.
I have in '97
with the Flyers. Yeah,
but after that didn't make it, but. Yeah, I believe you. I'm not a big hockey person, but I'll believe you that he belongs on that list. And we're trying to keep it a little different,
Yeah,
let's get some hockey guys in there.
That's right.
My second honorable mention is probably someone who Joe is not gonna like, but is on my list. But
it's great though.
the home run champion. I don't think you cannot have him on a list like this. after he wins it, or after he doesn't win it. 7-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 8-time Gold Glover, 12-time Silver Slugger, 2-time batting title, and the most home runs in Major League Baseball, and that is Barry Bonds. 22 years in the league, 15 for the Giants, 7 for the Pittsburgh Pirates. As well as walks, what number is he on in walks? I know that's definitely high too.
He had a great eye.
Career first in terms of walks as well. So he leads in 2 categories in Major League Baseball stats. Joe, I know you don't even want him in the Hall of Fame, which he is not yet. So
No.
I think he's the only person on either of our lists probably who is not in the Hall of Fame. So what are your thoughts on Barry Bonds? Do you recognize that he is one of the best players to not win a championship, but still doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, which is fine?
Okay, here's the thing about Barry Bonds. I actually look back to the Pittsburgh days, and I respected him when he played with Bonilla and Van Slyke in that group, because, man, they could hit, and they were really formidable teams. I think Barry Bonds always was ticketed to go to Cooperstown because he hit the ball harder than anybody. He would hit a lot of home runs, but somebody made a good point. He was probably there if all this steroid stuff didn't come up.
Yeah.
Like I will never take away the talent that he had. He was one of the most. Willie Mays said he might have been the best player ever since Babe Ruth. I mean, the guy had a great eye. You said about the walks. He could hit a fastball like nobody. I mean, pitchers were scared of him, Derek. I mean, and this is before the blow up and all that stuff. But
because it's kind of known right in San Francisco is where it seemed to happen. Well, guess what? Pittsburgh, 1990, he was the MVP.
Yeah.
52 stolen bases,
52.
33 homers, 114 RBIs, great slugging percentage on base. I understand. And just by the way, so the closest Barry Bonds got, he was in a World Series, 2002.
Yeah,
they made it to the World Series and they lost in Game 7, I believe. So
it's always going to be a controversy for him. I hope for some time we get a nice resolution about it. I think the writers are going to keep him out until the last minute. But if he gets in, I think Pete Rose needs to get in.
Well,
that's my only thing.
Yeah, and
you can't leave the hit king out. I mean, I get the home run king, but a lot of people think Hank Aaron's still the home run king. So, it's a really good argument, and it's probably another argument for another day. But I will not say that I don't respect him as a baseball player, but I have lost a lot of respect for him as a person. And that's just, and I never liked him when he was younger. I thought he was cocky, but the guy could hit a baseball. There's no doubt about it. So being a fan, Derek, it saddens me. I have to take that kind of a stance, but I feel like I'm in the middle.
Yeah. Well, so on to number 5. Joe.
Yep. Number 5 is a guy I also don't really like, Derek. It's a guy that's he's very controversial. What was can you tell me his nickname? Because I was trying to remember it.
Sir Charles Barkley.
No. He had a rebound nickname. Wasn't it something like the mound?
The round mound of rebound.
That's it. Thank you, Derek.
I have them all in front of me. So
Derek's tabs are working today. I love it. So he's a power forward. He was always a power forward. A big dude. You can see him now on TNT basketball or March Madness. He's always on there with Kenny Smith and all those guys. Shaq, all those guys. From 1984 to 1992, he wore a Philadelphia 76ers uniform. He was a Sun from 1992 to 96. He was a Houston Rocket from 96 to 2000. And this guy was an outstanding rebounder.
Yeah.
He was an absolute beast at rebounding the basketball.
For his size, he was 6'6", which is what like most point guard and shooting guards are nowadays. And he got amazing rebounds. You said it.
It's amazing. 11 All-Star appearances, 16-year career. He was in the NBA Finals, but he also won an MVP. And it's just amazing to sit there and say this guy shouldn't be on a list like this, because you got to think of Charles Barkley as one of the best players of all time. In fact, I go as far to say I think he's in the top 20 in the NBA of all time. I know he didn't score a lot, but he wasn't that type of player. He was more of the rebound. He was the guy that would be the garbage man. He would be the guy to get those points in the paint, but then he's also going to be the guy to get those rebounds, whether it's offensively, defensively. And Derek, I'm going to kick it to you. I'm sure you have a few things to say about Sir Charles.
Yeah, he
number 5 on my list.
Now he was kind of the secondary guy, if I recall, in Philadelphia. When he went to Phoenix is when he was the man. And that's when I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he went to the finals against Michael Jordan. I think it was 92 or 3.
Suns Bulls.
See it here, yeah. Where they lost. And if oh crap, now I can't remember the name. The last dance with Michael Jordan. Is that what it is? If no one's seen that on Netflix, I very
check it out.
Much recommend going out to see it. And Michael Jordan has a few things to say about Charles Barkley, especially I think it might have been that year when he won the MVP, and he was like, all right, give that to him. I'm going to go get the championship. That's what matters anyway. So, yeah. So, and then when he went to Houston, I think he was more just trying to chase a ring. That's when they had Hakeem and Drexler, I think. But Barkley was at the end of his career.
Were Jordan and Barkley friends too, though? Didn't they get to be friends later on in their careers?
Yeah, that I don't know. But he was number 20. You said it, in terms of rebounds in all of NBA. So a very tough guy. So yeah,
unbelievable.
Charles Barkley, not on my list, but I definitely acknowledge him as one of the best players who never won. Moving on to my
Derek, he's low. Derek, he's low. Derek.
Oh my God! But yeah, I mean, because I think the guys in front of him, maybe if he did hit that home run, get that home run number, but he couldn't quite do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr. is who I put as my number 5. One-time MVP, 10-time Gold Glover, 13-time All-Star. And it was really the Seattle years. When he went to Cincinnati is when he kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
Physically, I should say. There were very few years where he played full seasons. But when he was in Seattle, Joe, he was one of the, the sweet swing. You love to watch him out there in center field. There's those videos of him jumping over the wall to catch, bring back home run balls. There's that slide into home plate when Edgar Martinez knocked it down the line. And unfortunately, I don't know if he ever really came close in Cincinnati. I don't think so. I don't think Cincinnati has ever been amazingly good, but the closest he came with Seattle was the league championship. I believe that was 95. Yep. When they lost to Cleveland, finally got over the hump and beat the Yankees, but then they couldn't beat the Indians, who had a great team then, in which he had a great postseason, 6 home runs, hit 363. So nothing against him, nothing he could do. It's just the Mariners were a very lowly franchise, and they finally built up when they had Randy Johnson and Jay Buhner and Edgar, and just couldn't do it. But yeah, he's my number 5 there, Joe.
Well, my number 4 is a guy that I never watched myself, but another great player. I think he was a middle infielder. I couldn't remember if he was a second baseman or shortstop, but I know he played the middle infield. I'm almost positive.
I'll look it up for you.
Well, it's Ty Cobb. And he played for the Tigers from 1905 to 1926. He played with the Philadelphia Athletics from 1927 to 1928. Derek, he played for 24 years. That's amazing. You're never going to see that in this day and age, 24-year career. That's tremendous. He had a 366 batting average, and he played in 3 World Series from 1907 to 1909. And that's, again, when the baseball players wore their caps, no helmets, like it was old
Right.
school baseball, right? But Ty Cobb is my number 4. And, you know, it's tough when you even do some research about him. It's tough to really like sink into who they are. Barkley was a little easier for me because I've watched him play over the years, but I can't give you too much on Ty Cobb. But I just know he's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, besides Ernie Banks, I think he's the only one that's kind of out there that we haven't ever seen. Neither of us have actually ever seen, but
we weren't born yet, Derek.
He is known to be one of the best hitters of all time. So, and you don't get that title without being pretty decent. And I guess really more one of the most well-known historical figures. Like if you bring up Ty Cobb, a lot of people are going to know that he's an old school baseball, not much besides that, but that he's an old school baseball player. Taking a look here, terms of batting average, he has the best lifetime batting average ever. That's 366 amazing. Is what crazy. He finished with. 366. People don't come within 50 points of that in one season, let alone average that. But he played for a long time. Second in terms of hits. Obviously, Pete Rose would be number 1 in that category. But he was a figure for a long time there. He was a center fielder. That's what this says. I don't know that for certain, but yeah, most of his years in Detroit, won MVP award, and I guess the closest he got was 1909, Game 7, and they went down. So
comment on our video section, or if you're watching or listening, please to tell us where Ty Cobb actually played, as we have differing opinions.
Yeah, I guess he
might be a center fielder. I don't know why I thought he was an infielder, but okay. Interesting.
So number 4 for me, back to the hardwood.
Love this pick. Love this pick, Derek.
Another one who unfortunately ran into the train of Michael Jordan. Only this guy was in the West and probably had someone else on his team who could have been on this list, I would say. In John Stockton, but I went with Karl Malone, who is number 2, I believe, right, in terms of the most points scored in NBA history. Number 2, 36,928. Great rebounder as well. Not as high as Charles Barkley, but he was number 47 in rebounds per game. Played for 19 seasons, total 18 for the Jazz, and one where he tried to fish out that ring in Los Angeles, but lost in the 03-04 season. I can't quite remember. I'm pretty sure that's when they might have had like Bynum. Bynum was probably a few years. I think that was when Gary Payton was on the team, though. Shaq, and Kobe, and yeah, they couldn't quite win that one. I don't remember.
Derek Fisher was probably still there.
Derek Fisher, yeah, absolutely. But those Utah Jazz teams were never quite that level of beating Michael Jordan. And if you watch that on Netflix, you said he was never scared of Karl Malone. Well, you look at the biceps of Karl Malone. That's somewhat physically scary, that's for sure. But 14-time All-Star, 4-time All-Defensive Team, 14-time All-NBA, 2-time MVP, but never got that. Never got that ring again. Is Karl Malone? Do you have any memories of watching Karl Malone?
I do, actually. I actually remember at my aunt's house, me and my brother would go over to watch some of those games because he loved the Bulls. And we would turn it on. And I'd be like, oh, there comes Russell trying to hit that jump shot. But Malone would do that like hook in the lane. Like he would go to the lane,
Yeah,
and he would try, you know what I mean? And he would like sometimes he'll do the hook and sometimes he'll just back. Like he just had some interesting ways to get to the basket. He was a good rebounder. Talk about a good rebounder. He could rebound the basketball. But they always had like that Okie center. They had like, I don't know. Remember the Oster tag?
Greg
like,
Oster tag.
Oh
I remember him. Yeah.
It brings up the 90 teams, but like seriously, like they just never had a good center. So Malone
and it was more
double the work.
It was more because they had two of the best players in probably NBA history in Stockton and Malone, but then everyone else on the court was just pretty average. And that was there was never that third guy who could kind of put the ball on the basket and help him out. It was always, I know they were big pick and rollers. It was him, and part of the reason why Stockton is the leader in assists and Malone is second in points. That's where it was.
But that's what you're right though. They never had that third guy. They could have used a Scottie Pippen. That's who they could have used, because that would have been a huge help.
Even someone a little less than that I would have taken. But
okay.
Yeah. But the mailman, number 4 for me, Joe.
Derek, this one I can elaborate on because I watched him play. And even though he is a West Coast Major League Baseball player, Tony Gwynn might have been the best hitter I've ever seen. It wasn't that he had a lot of power. It was just that he could do so much with the baseball as it came to him. Like he would just flip balls into the outfield. He would just hit for contact. And two guys I want to premise this with saying, who talks about him all the time, even that he's deceased, God rest his soul, is John Kruk and Ben Davis. Both guys, Philly announcers now, but they both played with him in San Diego. So they both decided to always talk nicely about him and just how much of a great teammate he was and what a great hitter he was. And well, Derek, he's in the Hall of Fame, so you know how good of a hitter he was. He played for the Padres in 1982 to 2001, a very lengthy career. He was a great contact guy. Like I said, he could get a single if you need a single. Sometimes he'd hit you a double in the gap. He used his hips well. He used his, guys are still being compared to who he was, but nobody will ever live up to Tony Gwynn. A very good left-handed hitter, 8 batting titles. And right there, you talk about batting title. That's hard to do in this day and age.
That's a big number. 8 batting
titles.
Yeah.
15 All-Star appearances, which tells you what the fans thought of him in 20 seasons. And he is in the World Series appearances in 1984 and 1998. Derek, Tony Gwynn could not be left off my list. I love the player that he was. And the more you hear about him, you just think that, his son had a cup of coffee in the Major League Baseball, but Chris was never the player his dad was. But Tony Gwynn, just a great player in my book.
Yeah, and without a doubt, probably one of the best pure hitters in Major League Baseball history. I mean, unfortunately, and that's something that's a little annoying to see, is he never really came close to an MVP. He finished 3rd once, it looks like, but besides that, he never finished higher than 7th.
Played for 20 seasons.
The year he finished 7th, he hit 394. I understand. Yeah, okay. His home runs 12. His RBIs 24.
He still had 12 home runs though.
Come on, Joe. I mean, 394, and then when he finished 3rd, he hit 351 with 213 hits, 5 home. He was never a home run guy. Most he ever had was 17.
He probably got a hit every time up. Like seriously,
he was.
He wore out pitchers.
Well, more than 1 out of 3 times you get a hit. Yeah. So,
I feel like, Derek, you're right. It's not sexy to get that contact hit, but sometimes that can win you a game or win you a series, or just for momentum's sake. Baseball's a huge game of momentum. I love baseball. I always say it. I'll say it till the day I die. But some of the stuff they go by is ridiculous, and this is one of them. He should have been an MVP in his career, probably multiple times.
So I'll move on to my number 3 here. I'm going. Have we had a gridiron guy yet?
No.
Have we had a football guy? No.
I don't have it on my list, actually.
Okay. So here's the first one that I
Yep.
have, and we're going to go to quarterback. And someone who held multiple records for quite a long time until Brett Favre came and broke a bunch of them. Peyton Manning broke some of them. And that was Dan Marino for the Miami Dolphins. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All Pro, 1-time MVP. Um, the stats in the beginning of his years really jump out. When he had 49 or 48 touchdown passes, 44 touchdown passes. Um, Closest he ever came was in '84, is when he made the Super Bowl. That was once, and they lost to probably Joe Montana, I would have to imagine, 38-16, and the Niners in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 19. Um, Often said he's had some really bad defenses, but unfortunately his teams could never really make it close because he would have to put up all these points.
Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately, Dan Marino was one of the most talented quarterbacks ever, and he never was able to get that ring.
So a couple of things I always remember about Dan Marino. He went to the University of Pittsburgh. Okay, I always remember that. He wore number 13 throughout his whole career, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a guy that never won a title. Like we always talk, everybody talked about it. But he threw to some good receivers. I remember Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, both guys that were pretty good in his early years. He threw to other guys, of course, during his as he got older, but he just never. And then you got to remember for Ace Ventura because he was in that movie. But Dan Marino was just a guy that, yeah, he just never could get it done. And you kind of got to feel for the guy because the defenses, like you said, they just weren't up to snuff. They just weren't like. Didn't Larry Zonka play on defense at one point in his like maybe that's too that might have been too back far, but I was wondering about that. But no, Marino is a great quarterback and he'll always be linked to the Dolphins, and it's a great one for the list.
Yeah, a lot of top tens now. Unfortunately, he's not. He used to be number one for so long and everything, but number 7 in passes completed, number 5 in passes attempted, number 6 in passing yards, number 6 in passing touchdowns, number 8 in passes intercepted. So yeah, he had to throw the ball, so number 2 in pick sixes too. But yeah. So I had to throw Dan Marino on that list. He was always known as one of the most talented, but never really had the team around him.
Well, my number 2 guy will pique some controversy because he was a polarizing figure in the city of Philadelphia. This will be the shooting guard / point guard, if you will. Number 3, Allen Iverson. And he was a Sixer from 96 to 2006. So he spent 10 years there in Philly. He went to Denver then and played from 06 to 08, still not winning a title. Then in Detroit, 08 and 09. And then I think he was with the Grizzlies in 09. Now, Derek, what a wonderful player. But
yeah,
he just, he got to the NBA Finals against the Lakers, and then they got sent home because Kobe was, God rest his soul, was ridiculous. He was clutch. He hit the 3, and he would steal, and he did play the game really hard. I might have him a little high. I probably should have dropped him and put Gwyn too, but we'll stick with it.
That's all right.
But you know what? To me, he's 11-time All-Star. You look back at Philly athletes, and I think for him, he was a guy that always gave it all he had. Probably should have talked less and played even harder. But other than that, he had a really long career. And I just thought, seeing this list, yeah, you thought he would have got a ring at some point. I mean, Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb could have been on the list too, but I felt like Iverson deserved the Philly vote. And I'm sure I'll hear hopefully from our comments. Maybe somebody will tell me I was crazy, but we'll see. So
how many people on like the anniversary of something they said, does Sports Center and then bring it up, talking about practice, and so he would be one example of that. But yeah, I mean, Ivers obviously had one of the best
Yeah.
crossovers in the NBA, did Allen Iverson, and they never really were going to beat that Lakers team in 2002.
No.
Who is the one of the Shaq and Kobe prime years, a young Derek Fisher, or young Rick Fox when he was there. His teams never really were remotely close, unfortunately. When I'm trying to think of some of the guys, Aaron McKee, I remember.
Yeah.
A couple years with Dikembe Mutombo, Keith Van Horn, and Derek Coleman, and Eric Snow. I remember. Yeah, and that talent is not close to other teams, but he was
Bradley,
one of the fastest players, and definitely one of the gutsy. 6 foot, Joe. He was 6 foot, and I know he was. Yeah, and I know he wasn't really a point guard. He was more of the shooting guard because Eric Snow was the point guard. So he was going up against guys every night who were 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, Ray Allen, those type of guys. Yeah,
and I'm sure he was one of the top leaders in steals as well.
So fast.
Yeah, great player.
So quick.
Was AI.
Yeah.
So well deserved, absolutely. I'm going to someone who was also pretty small for his position.
But was he good though?
And this was interesting. Like his stats are not remotely close to winning anything, I don't think. But unfortunately, he only played about 10. I think 10 years here.
10 seasons. I got.
And that was Barry Sanders. His teams never came close, Joe.
No,
he did in 1991. That was his third season when he was 23. They made it to the NFC Championship game where they lost 41-10. So, but I mean, hey, the NFC Championship game was pretty good, but
yeah, never good quarterbacks either.
No, the Lions were just known as a futility franchise, unfortunately. But he was easily one of the best running backs at the time. He had some amazing runs. I'm sure you want to go see some. You want to go watch some running back highlights. Go out there on YouTube when you're done watching Time Out with Derek and Joe. Go out there and watch some Barry Sanders highlights, and they're amazing to watch. And the fact that it's unfortunate he didn't stick around. It's not really too out there anymore. You see a lot of players around 10 years retire now, more for the concussion reasons, I guess. And maybe that's why. Maybe it'll come out eventually that was a reason why he decided to retire a little early. But yeah, he just had to carry those teams, Joe, and he couldn't. Maybe a quarterback can carry a team to a Super Bowl, but it's hard for a running back, especially you need that offensive line too in order to get there. So, thoughts on Barry Sanders?
I just remember the way he cut, the way he used his legs to he made so many people miss. And you're right, the highlight tapes are awesome of him, and always remember the number 20 with him. I'm a big numbers guy, so I just he was always 20. Just playing the Pontiac Silverdome where they usually played their home games, you just always watched him in the dome, and those battles with the Vikings, they always. But Derek, John Kitna, I think was a quarterback. Maybe they had those types of guys.
One of them.
They just had average quarterbacks, and not a lot of great receivers either. So he really had to carry the load. And I did write down he rushed for 2,053 yards in 10 seasons. That's pretty good. That's something you don't see that a lot. And maybe Payton and, Jim Brown are
number 4.
Yeah. Number 4 on the list. That's
number 4 in terms of rushing yards career.
Are Brown and Payton above him?
I would have to go look. Keep talking.
Okay. All right, so I can do that. No, but yeah, Barry Sanders is just that guy that you wish could have been on a better team. Like he never got on that team that could use his skills and his talent for what they are. And
Yeah.
he's just a product where he played, Derek. Product of where he played. So did you find that?
One, Emmitt Smith. Number 2, Walter Payton. Did you know Frank Gore is now number 3? I did not know that.
What?
I have to say,
Frank Gore.
I mean, he's
from the
played
University of Miami.
Played for 16 years, and Barry Sanders played for 10. So,
oh my
but
God,
yeah.
Frank Gore.
But anyway, Frank Gore has 16,000 yards. So,
wow.
Joe.
Well, Derek,
let us know your number one.
My number one athlete is a guy you mentioned earlier. I kept quiet because I didn't want to steal your thunder for your place with him. But I had to do this because all right, it's Ken Griffey Jr. His injuries cost him half his career. He was so injury riddled. That guy could get a ball in center field. Like they made a movie, Little Big League. He's robbing the guy of the home run. Like, I mean, he was absolutely the status, like over the status quo, I should say. He was the ceiling of what center fielders could be. And I mean, he played from 89 to 99 in Seattle, 13 seasons actually total with the Reds then in 2000 to 2008. The White Sox in 08 and the Mariners back, I guess, in 09. He came back to play in 09. I forget about that.
Yes. And he was bad. That was brutal to watch because he couldn't even hit the ball out of the infield. It was brutal.
He was done. Yeah. In his prime, though, he was a heck of a center fielder. I would have loved to see him get close to Aaron. That would have been exciting. Such a humble guy. He always, except for the backwards hat. I mean, like I always hated that. But there was a guy that you wanted to see come up in a big situation because he would come through in those situations. He dropped his swing and the way he finished was so amazing. I just couldn't do. I know he's high on my list. Probably, well, he's the highest, but he could be lower a little bit. But I love Ken Griffey Jr. And I know you had him down on your list, but you have him on the list. So I'm glad that we saw eye to eye on that one. And he played some great players, like you said, the Tino Martinez's and Harold Reynolds now on MLB Network. You got all these guys, Buhner, and the list goes on. But just a shame he didn't win a title. Jamie Moyer, former Philly, Jamie Moyer, he's there. He was young.
Oh no, he might. I think Jamie Moyer was after him, but yeah.
Oh, Jamie Moyer played a long time.
That question will be thrown out there forever, Joe. If he would have stayed healthy, would he have beaten all these records and whatnot? And I think
we'll never know.
He's probably as talented in his prime as anyone probably in baseball. So
it's not arguable. Derek is your number one guy.
Somewhere else in baseball, and I take it back. This is another one that we never got to see, but we've heard a ton about, I'm sure. For number one, I wrote Ted Williams. Ted Williams, unfortunately, and you didn't see it with too many, but he, in 3 of his prime years, he went to World War II. 3 years that he could have probably been MVP, because in 41 he was second in 42, then he missed 3 years. 46 when he came back, MVP, second in 47, third in 48, won it again in 49. Joe, looking at some of these numbers, man, 406 he hit one season, 406. 356, 342, 343, 369, 400, 407. He hit 344 total. He's number one in terms, as well as, let's not forget, he walked as well. On base percentage is tops in the history of Major League Baseball, 482. 48% of the time when he walked up to home plate, he was getting on base. And that is
Yeah.
an astonishing number to me. Two-time MVP, two-time Triple Crown winner, which is really unknown, unheard
Yeah.
of these
No, you don't.
days
No.
anymore.
No.
You see them about halfway through the season, they'll follow the person, and then in one category they drop off. um 6-time batting title, 19-time all-star in 19 seasons. That'll do it. um Joe, he was one of the best to ever play the game, and they even missed 3 years. He probably could be tops in a lot of these categories, but great player was Ted Williams. I didn't get to watch him. You didn't get to watch him, but from
No.
what we've heard, one of the best to ever play it.
Yeah, this is what I was told years ago, growing up playing the game and watching the game. My grandfather always told me, "Wish you could have saw Ted Williams hit a baseball." And then I go and watch some tapes, and sometimes you'll have it on ESPN. We'll have old school stuff one about baseball. Ted Williams had a swing like, the smoothest swing, the sweetest swing, and a short swing. He was just one of those guys that could.
It was easy.
He got it. Yeah, he got it early in his career. He got it early in his life, and he ended up becoming one of the best baseball players of all time. Famously wearing number 9 for the Boston Red Sox for most of his career. But just the splendid splinter, they called him. And there was a good reason why, because he would just really attack the ball. And yeah, that's a great one for number 1, Derek.
And I will say,
yeah,
real quick though, so the closest he got, 1946. So that was his first year back, actually, when he won
okay.
the MVP. They lost in Game 7 to the St. Louis Cardinals. But they were in his prime years, 9 out of 10 years, the Yankees won the pennant. So that was
Wrong
why
team.
he couldn't do it. So
The Yankees are beating him up.
couldn't get by those Yankee teams of the 40s. But that was our list. Joe, you go first. Run through your 2 honorable mentions and top 5.
First honorable mention was the center from the New York Knicks, Patrick Ewing. My second honorable mention is NHL's Eric Lindros for my second one. My top 5, my 5th guy, Charles Barkley from the 76ers, where he played most of his career. Number 4, Ty Cobb, played with the Tigers and the Athletics most of his career. Number 3, Tony Gwynn, the late Tony Gwynn, the San Diego Padres great. Number 2 was Allen Iverson. He played for 4 different teams, but the Sixers are definitely one of his more prized teams, I would say. And number 1 is Derek's own Ken Griffey Jr. from the Seattle Mariners.
As for me, my first honorable mention was Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks. My second honorable mention was, well, you could call him a lot of names, but Barry Bonds is what we'll call him, is my second honorable mention. Ken Griffey Jr. Was my number 5. Number 4, Karl Malone, Utah Jazz. Number 3, Dan Marino, quarterback from the Dolphins. Number 2, Barry Sanders, Detroit Lions. And number 1 was Boston's own Ted Williams. Joe, I thought this was a very interesting list. I hope people get to enjoy it. And write down in the comments, wherever you're at, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, go in the comments and let us know your top 5 or any of the greatest athletes who never won a championship. Joe, before we get going, final thoughts.
Yeah, it was an interesting show. I think that's the thing we have to come away with this, and it was fun to put this list together. We could probably make another list another time, possibly. Baseball is in full swing now, so we're doing some baseball shows, of course. And let's not forget that some of the history that's in these sports is just so incredible, and some of these athletes we named today are some of the best athletes of all time. So yeah, please comment and like, and always follow our show. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Facebook group, we should say, and also on YouTube. So keep on subscribe too, because it's going to help us along the way. And we're about in our mid 40s now with our shows. So we're here to stay, people, if you like us or not. Hopefully you like us.
So, you know the drill, everyone. As Joe mentioned, pretty much all of them. Subscribe on YouTube and like the video. It'll help us out immensely. All podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Listen to us out there if you would rather just listen. Follow us on Facebook, our Facebook group, Time Out Derek and Joe, with Derek and Joe. And as well as on Twitter. All of it is Time Out with Derek and Joe, so you'll be able to find us out there. But that was our top 5 greatest athletes who never won a championship. As Joe mentioned, let us know in the comments who some of yours were, and we look forward to seeing them. As always, everyone, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Stay safe and take care.